Hello, I'm Janet, a 33-year-old stay-at-home mom living with my two wonderful children. Life has been quite good for us lately, although we've hit a rough patch due to some issues with my husband, mainly revolving around his mother. You see, my husband is very close to his mom, what some might call a mama's boy, and it sometimes feels like she's overly involved in our lives. Recently, the situation came to a head during a serious discussion we had. It started when my husband called me over and asked me to sit down because he wanted to discuss our finances. He reassured me that everything was fine with his job, but mentioned that we needed to tighten our budget at home to accommodate a new expense. When I asked what the expense was, he hesitated, taking a deep breath before revealing that he wanted to start giving his mother a monthly sum of money. According to him, it wouldn't be a huge amount, but given that she was getting older, he felt she needed the extra support. This puzzled me because his mother, Catherine, ran a successful business and was quite well off. She was a widow, and with her children out of the house, it didn't seem to me that she was in need of financial help. I expressed my concerns, but he brushed them aside, not willing to divulge how much he planned to send her. Insisting on transparency, especially since I managed our household finances, I pressed him for details. Finally, he admitted that he planned to send her $6,100 each month. I was shocked by the amount. $6,100 a month seemed excessive, especially considering that it was roughly what many families spend in total each month. I argued that it wasn't reasonable, but he was adamant. The disagreement escalated to the point where we ended up sleeping in separate beds that night, both upset and unresolved. This financial decision affected not only strained our budget, but our relationship as well. As someone who prioritizes smart financial management, the idea of sending $6,100 monthly to someone without a pressing need seemed impractical. That sum, totaling $63,500 annually, could significantly benefit our family by boosting our children's college funds, contributing to our health insurance, or increasing our savings. Alternatively, this amount could make a real difference if donated to charities supporting those in dire need. Despite my attempts to convey these thoughts to my husband, he remained unyielding. 6 months after he started transferring money to his mother, he even suggested I handle the monthly transactions, which felt like a further assertion of his priorities, placing his mother's whims over our family's financial well-being. However, this arrangement took an unexpected turn when I discovered new information about the situation. 5 months into the allowance, during a visit from my mother-in-law, she casually mentioned how this financial help had come at a crucial time. Business hadn't been as good, and although she hadn't wanted to ask for help, my husband had intuitively stepped in to support her. Hearing her admit to struggling financially changed my perspective. I was moved by her vulnerability and found myself sympathizing with her need. It seemed only right to support someone genuinely in distress. Yet, as we continued talking, the conversation took a perplexing turn. Catherine began discussing potential luxury vacations she could now afford thanks to the extra money. This struck me as odd. If she truly needed financial aid, why consider such extravagant expenditures? Whenever I seemed puzzled by her plans, she would quickly adjust her narrative, claiming she only meant such travels could happen once she regained her financial independence. This contradiction was confusing, but I gave her the benefit of the doubt, attributing it to a momentary lapse into wishful thinking. Over the next 3 months, I continued sending her the money, each time receiving heartfelt thanks that seemed to confirm her genuine need. Feeling guilty for doubting my mother-in-law and arguing with my husband, the financial strain of the situation soon began to impact our family life. Despite our efforts to adjust and cut corners, the reduction in our disposable income was noticeable, and I found myself trying to manage our finances more tightly. Then, one evening while tidying up my husband's office, curiosity led me to a text message on his phone from his mother. It read, "Hey Liam, hope you're doing well. Could you increase my monthly allowance? I want to enjoy some extra luxuries." I was taken aback. Given that she already received a substantial sum that many would find ample for basic needs, her request for more, specifically for luxuries, seemed excessive. Considering she was a healthy 62-year-old widow who lived alone, this request raised doubts about her claimed financial distress. Driven by a mix of concern and suspicion, I resisted the urge to delve deeper into my husband's emails and instead turned my attention to our family's financial records. Finding no clues there, I decided to approach the matter directly. I phoned Catherine late one evening. "Hello, Catherine, I hope everything's okay with you." She responded, "Well, I'm managing, but honestly, it's been tough. Sometimes I struggle to afford even basic things like toiletries. I'm really grateful to my son for helping me out." Seizing the opportunity, I invited her over for tea the following day, suggesting a casual get-together to perhaps learn more about her situation firsthand. "Tea sounds wonderful. Thank you for inviting me. You know, things have been tight for me too. Sometimes I can't even afford tea, so it would be nice to have some with you." "Oh, it'll be my pleasure, Catherine. Just come over and we'll have a nice afternoon together," I replied, setting my plan into motion. The next day, we sat down for tea, enjoying light conversation. When Catherine excused herself to use the bathroom, I saw my chance to uncover more about her financial reality. I found her phone in her purse, unlocked it, and opened her banking app. Women's intuition pushed me forward, feeling both the weight and the risk of what I was about to discover about her true financial standing. As my suspicions about Catherine's financial situation grew, I decided to delve deeper into her records. What I found was completely unexpected and left me reeling. Catherine, who I thought was struggling financially, actually had a staggering $2.1 million in her bank account, a discovery that I had to double-check to believe. The reality of her wealth was undeniable, as I refreshed her banking app and saw the same huge sum staring back at me. My confusion only intensified when I stumbled upon a text message on her phone from one of her employees. The message read, "Hello, Catherine. Please find attached the financial breakdown of last month's earnings. Just wanted to let you know it looks like we've made a big profit for the 5th month in a row. You're a fantastic businesswoman. I'm eager to hear your thoughts." Driven by a mix of disbelief and curiosity, I opened the attached document and was confronted with even more astonishing figures: a monthly profit of $10,200. For a small business, this was no small feat. Sitting there, absorbing the shock of what I'd discovered, a wave of anger washed over me. Catherine had been extracting money from her son, and indirectly from her grandchildren under the guise of need, which now appeared to be nothing more than a manipulation to boost her already substantial wealth. As I heard Catherine's footsteps approaching, I hastily cleared all evidence of my snooping and returned her phone to her purse, my heart racing. When Catherine returned, she thanked me warmly for the tea, continuing to play the part of a financially burdened elderly woman. "Oh, Janet, thank you again for the lovely tea. You know, as an old lady, it's tough to manage, especially when you're already struggling. Lately, things have been really hard for me, dear." Her words, now so clearly disconnected from her financial reality, echoed hollowly as I nodded, hiding my turmoil behind a polite smile. The discrepancy between her portrayed hardships and her actual prosperity left me grappling with what to do next. Catherine expressed her gratitude for the support my husband and I had been providing, and with a polite smile, she ventured to ask if it might be possible to increase her monthly assistance to $8,000. It took every bit of composure I had to maintain a calm demeanor in response to her request, given the discoveries I had made about her actual financial situation. "I understand that times seem tough for you and we want to help," I managed to say, keeping my voice even. "It's not as if you have millions tucked away." Her brief pause at my words nearly went unnoticed, but I was too attuned to her reactions now. She quickly covered her surprise, laughing it off. "Oh no, of course not. If I were that wealthy, I wouldn't be asking for more help, darling. So, what do you say? Regrettably, I had to let her down gently. Unfortunately, we can't manage an extra $1,900 right now. The change in Catherine's expression was immediate. Her smile vanished, replaced by a tight-lipped look of frustration. That's all right, no problem, she said briskly, her tone slightly colder. I have to leave now, but let's catch up again soon. She left in a hurry, almost as if embarrassed by a personal rejection. With the knowledge of her deceit fresh in my mind, any remnants of sympathy I had for her evaporated. I faced a dilemma about whether to reveal what I had discovered to my husband. After some thought, I decided it was important for him to see his mother's true character on his own, especially given his past criticisms of my concerns. It was a tough lesson, but one he needed to learn by himself. A few days later, the time came to send Catherine her usual $6,100 allowance. Despite having the money ready, I hesitated. Given what I knew, I opted not to send it immediately. I wanted her to experience the surprise and perhaps a bit of the hardship she had so falsely claimed to endure. This decision wasn't made lightly, but it felt necessary to underline the severity of the situation and to prompt a more genuine conversation in the future. When the money didn't arrive as expected, it was the wake-up call Catherine truly needed. As predicted, my husband called me a few hours later, visibly upset. "What's going on?" he demanded. "What do you mean?" I replied, trying to keep calm. "Don't play dumb, Janet. I know what you're up to. Why haven't you sent Mom the allowance? I'm getting tired of your games," he accused. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my voice. "Listen, I understand you care about your mom, and I'm sorry if it seems like I don't appreciate that, but you need to hear me out. There's a reason behind what I'm doing." He cut me off, his tone harsh and dismissive. "You don't even earn a dime to have a say in how we spend our money. It's my money, and I'll decide what to do with it. So when I say send money, you do it. You're just a housewife, remember that." His words were like a knife through my heart. How could he speak to me that way? All the frustration and anger I had contained for so long suddenly erupted, and I couldn't hold back any longer. "You know what your problem is. You don't appreciate me. Do you think being a housewife and mom is a breeze? Well, let's see how easy it is without me. I'm not sticking around to be treated like this. But before I go, check your mother's bank account. Don't bother calling me until you've done that. Have a nice evening." "Janet, wait, I didn't mean—" He started to say, but I had already hung up. I was done being treated like I didn't matter. Sometimes life throws challenges at us that force us to take a stand. I had been working tirelessly, and all my efforts were taken for granted. Let's see how he manages without me, especially when he discovers the truth about his mother's deceit. Driven by a mixture of defiance and the need for vindication, I sent him the photos I had taken of his mother's bank account details during my investigation. It was time he saw the full picture and understood the extent of the situation. I switched my phone to Do Not Disturb mode, gathered some essentials, and packed bags for myself and the kids. We checked into a nearby hotel, a move I explained away to the children by saying our house needed fumigation and it would be a short stay. To keep their worries at bay, I reassured them that Daddy was staying at a different hotel for the time being. I wanted to protect them from the harsh realities and the tension at home. They didn't need to bear the weight of adult problems. Despite setting my phone to ignore incoming calls and messages, notifications from my mother-in-law and my husband began to fill my inbox. I was too emotionally exhausted to confront them, so I focused on making the evening enjoyable and relaxing for my children. We played games and spent quality time together, a much-needed distraction for all of us. The next morning, I was awakened by a call from the hotel's front desk. "Hello, miss. There's someone named Liam here who'd like to meet you. For safety reasons, we need to confirm if you know each other." "Yes, I know him. He's my husband," I responded, letting them know they could give him my room number. When Liam arrived, he immediately embraced me, his hug full of regret and desperation. "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry for everything. I saw the evidence you sent me and you were right not to give her any more money," he said, tears streaming down his face as he clung to me. I led him into the room, and as he composed himself, we sat down to talk. "Darling, I'm so sorry for everything. I'm glad you realized what was going on. Can you tell me what happened?" he asked, genuinely remorseful. Just then, my phone rang. It was my mother-in-law. I hesitated but decided to answer. "Hello? How dare you invade my privacy like that? I could sue, you know. Do you even need the money? How dare you try to ruin my reputation in front of my son?" she accused furiously. Her words confirmed her disregard for the strain she was putting on our family. Despite her anger, I remained calm, aware that Liam needed to see this side of her for himself. Her manipulation had to be laid bare, not just for my sake, but for the well-being of our entire family. As my mother-in-law's voice crackled through the phone, her words were laced with malice, not resembling the woman I once knew, but more like a vindictive stranger. "Ha, you must be delusional if you think he'll stop sending me money. Do you think he'll listen to a mere housewife? You're sorely mistaken. Yes, I have money. I've always had money since my husband passed away. I just like to control Liam sometimes so he doesn't get too arrogant. He needs to remember that mommy comes first." Her harsh words turned my blood cold, and her tone, manipulative and bitter, shocked me deeply. The yelling was loud enough to wake the children, adding chaos to the already tense atmosphere. Unfazed by the impact of her actions, she continued, "So you're not bothered by how your selfishness has disrupted this household? You don't care that Liam and I have been arguing because of your actions. You don't even care that you've been stealing from your son and grandchildren." Her response was chilling. "Oh, come on, you two are headed for divorce anyway. I can't wait for that. They'll come home to me eventually. And as for those kids, well, I guess I don't really care." "Mom, that's incredibly cruel," I said, hoping Liam was listening. Liam, who had been quiet, finally spoke, his voice filled with disbelief and hurt. "Liam, honey, listen, I didn't mean it." "Nope, that won't work on me this time," he replied firmly. "I've seen your true colors and I've had enough. You've made the past few months hell for me and Janet. How could you manipulate me like this? I'm your son. What kind of evil has possessed you to do such terrible things?" I could hear the betrayal in his voice, the disappointment that he had not seen the signs himself. "I fell for your tricks, but my wonderful wife, Janet, saw through you all along. She knew something was off, but I shouted at her and disrespected her. Not anymore. Janet is my real family, not you. I never want to hear from you again." "Liam, wait, but I have no one," she pleaded weakly. "Maybe that's how it should be," he concluded, and with a definitive click, he ended the call, closing a painful chapter and perhaps opening the door to a new beginning for us. Despite his upset demeanor, I could see a clear sense of relief wash over Liam as he processed the truth. He had been manipulated his entire life, a realization that must have felt like a heavy weight being lifted from his shoulders. For the rest of the day, he was profoundly apologetic to both me and our children for the way he had behaved, and for the emotional distance he had imposed upon us. He confessed that he couldn't even endure a single night without us, acknowledging how much he had taken for granted. Liam expressed deep remorse for his past mistakes and made a heartfelt promise to change. He was determined not to let history repeat itself, especially now that he understood the manipulative dynamics that had clouded his judgment for so long. As for his relationship with his mother, he was resolute. When he said he didn't want to hear from her again, he meant it. Despite her repeated attempts to reach out, Liam consistently declined her calls. She had chosen her path, and now she had to face the consequences alone. His commitment to putting our family first marked a new chapter for us, filled with hope for a more united future.
"Know your place," my mother-in-law snapped in an icy tone. "Of course our son doesn't need your approval to keep us here," she added sharply. You can't speak to our son in that manner. Be cautious, or you might find yourself being asked to leave. Stop acting like a spoiled individual and escort us to the most spacious room. We're not going to wait any longer, Janice demanded, her voice rising. I straightened my posture, anger simmering beneath the surface, but I kept my voice steady as I locked eyes with her. No, Janice, I don't believe I'll comply with that, I replied firmly. The room froze in stunned silence, the weight of my defiance hanging in the air like a thundercloud about to break. I'm Macy. I'm 36 years old, and I find myself in a new chapter of life as a single woman. In the past, I was married to someone named Tyler, who, unfortunately, turned out to be quite a challenging partner. His parents, David and Janice, were no better, and together they consistently made me feel quite uncomfortable. To be honest, Tyler and I were both successful in our careers and were financially stable. However, despite our achievements, his parents never acknowledged my contributions, and instead labeled me as someone who was taking advantage of their son. Tyler played a role in this by constantly portraying me as fortunate to have married him, insinuating that I desired a luxurious life that only he could provide. Unbeknownst to his parents, I managed most of the finances in our household. Despite my efforts, Tyler perpetuated the misconception that I was financially dependent on him, adding strain to our relationship. His parents even went so far as to have us sign a prenuptial agreement, believing I wouldn't amount to anything and wanting to protect their son's interests. While I don't object to the concept of prenups, what bothered me was that Tyler never discussed it with me. He consistently misled his family about our financial situation, falsely claiming that I earned significantly less than him and relied on him entirely. In my love for Tyler, I tolerated insults and humiliation from both him and his family. It pains me to admit that I made a mistake in marrying him. Tyler didn't truly care for me or respect me. Instead, he regularly belittled me for earning less and spending what he falsely claimed was his money. In reality, he had lost his job 2 years ago and was dependent on me, a fact he desperately wanted to keep hidden from his parents. As time passed, Tyler's behavior wore on my patience. He refused to actively seek employment, continuously draining my savings. The breaking point came when I independently purchased a house, marking the end of our troubled relationship. I received an inheritance from a relative and started saving to build a fund for buying a house. When I found the perfect match, a beautiful house that I instantly fell in love with, I purchased it and put the title in my name only. Despite Tyler not contributing financially to the purchase, he continued to protest. I reminded him that he hadn't paid anything towards it, but his persistent pestering became unbearable. The breaking point came during a family dinner when Tyler's parents brought up the topic of the house. They expressed excitement about us buying a big, unique house and asked if we had moved in yet. Despite Tyler and I having already finalized the deal and moved in, Tyler's mother assumed he had contributed significantly due to his modest salary. When Tyler's mom questioned if we had bought the house jointly, I anticipated Tyler would correct her and acknowledge my full ownership. However, he shocked me by claiming he had paid for the entire house, citing his successful job and substantial savings as the reasons for buying it in his name. His parents showered him with praise, declaring him a successful and independent homeowner. Despite my attempts to get Tyler's attention and rectify the situation, he avoided eye contact deliberately. Frustrated and angered by the situation, I managed to control my emotions, choosing not to confront him in front of his parents. Upon our departure, I couldn't help but question Tyler about his revelation to his parents regarding the house purchase. What on earth was that, Tyler? Why did you claim to have bought the house entirely on your own when you hadn't paid a penny on it? I said indignantly. Tyler tried to ease my concerns, saying, "Relax, Macy. I just wanted to make them happy. I didn't want them to suspect that I lost my job. They would be extremely disappointed. What else was I supposed to do?" Frustrated, I responded, "You could have at least mentioned that we went 60 to 65 on the house. Instead, you took all the credit for the purchase. This feels humiliating and unfair, Tyler." I continued to protest indignantly. He dismissively stated, "Look, what's done is done. I'm not going back to correct myself. I won't humiliate myself like that. Who cares what my parents think? Let them believe what they want. Reflecting on the situation, I realized that something had changed in Tyler after our marriage. He seemed to no longer care about me or my feelings, and it became apparent that he had been relying on me for the past 2 years. Despite showing signs of finding employment again, he even argued about putting his name on the house title. As I grappled with the realization that he was using me, a more significant issue unfolded. One evening, as I prepared a snack, the doorbell rang, prompting Tyler to hurriedly open the door with a hint of uneasiness. To my shock, I discovered his parents at the door, bringing all their belongings. Beaming with excitement, they announced their plans to stay in the new house, claiming Tyler had invited them to live in the home he had bought outright. Feeling blindsided, I listened as Tyler played along, claiming it was his idea to have them move in, stating that they needed to stay in the spacious house since he had purchased it. At that moment, it became clear that Tyler's deceitfulness extended beyond his parents, and I began contemplating what steps to take next. My disbelief was palpable as I processed the information. In no conceivable reality did I ever consent to Tyler's decision to let his parents stay in our house. It was evident that the facade surrounding the house had spiraled out of control. However, I hesitated to confront Tyler in the presence of his family. There was no way I would permit his parents to live in my house, but I sought a tactful approach to handle the situation. Meanwhile, Tyler's parents continued to indulge in wishful thinking, expressing their delight at living in a spacious house. They showered praise on Tyler for his supposed success, proclaiming our home to be magnificent. Their excitement grew as they discussed the prospect of having 3 bedrooms with plans to claim the largest one. Frustrated and increasingly angry at the unexpected intrusion and presumptuous demands, I decided it was time to address the issue privately. I suggested to Tyler that we have a conversation away from his parents, who seemed oblivious to the brewing tension. Turning to him with barely contained frustration, I said sharply, "Tyler, we need to talk, privately. Now." Tyler, sensing the severity of the situation, began avoiding eye contact, realizing he was in trouble. Annoyed by my in-laws' sudden arrival and their audacious requests, I confronted Tyler about his unilateral decision. "Why didn't you tell me they were coming?" I demanded. "You can't just make decisions like this without consulting me." Tyler, perhaps fearing the impending confrontation, attempted to deflect. "Maybe we should discuss this openly in front of my parents," he said, his voice laden with false confidence. I crossed my arms, refusing to back down. "Are you sure about that, Tyler?" "Well, if you don't mind discussing it in front of your parents, then neither do I." Without waiting for his response, I turned to my mother-in-law. "Go ahead and tell me what you want." Janice's eyes narrowed as her tone turned cutting. "Certainly, he doesn't require your approval to retain us here," she snapped. "Know your place, Macy. You can't address our son in that manner. Exercise caution, or you might find yourself asked to leave. Stop acting like a spoiled brat, and show us to the most spacious room. We've waited long enough." I straightened my posture, meeting her gaze squarely. My voice was calm but resolute. "No, Janice, I don't believe I'll comply with that." My audacity left Janice and David utterly astonished. I wasn't certain whether I should resent them or not. Granted, they were entitled individuals, but it was Tyler's fault for deceiving his parents. If Tyler hadn't misled them and invited them, we wouldn't be facing this issue. Nonetheless, I acknowledged that Janice and David were not entirely blameless. They stood in my home threatening eviction. It was challenging for me to overlook that. My mother-in-law glared at me. "What do you mean, Macy? If you don't guide us to the room our son Tyler assured us of, we'll have to take matters into our own hands. We left our rented apartment for this reason. We came here today because Tyler vowed to care for us. He's a good man who knows how to look after his parents. He invited us to stay in his new home, prompting us to terminate our lease prematurely," she explained. "In that case, Janice and David, you've made a grave error," I said coolly. "I doubt you can stay here, let alone claim the largest room." Janice's eyes narrowed. "How dare you, Macy? We don't require your permission to stay here. Our son will lead us to our room. If you won't, remember this house isn't yours to decide if we stay," she added angrily. "You've misunderstood, Janice," I replied. I suppose Tyler hasn't informed you yet. This house belongs to me, not him. Therefore, the largest room is not at your disposal. You'll have to make do elsewhere. David interrupted, his voice rising. What? That's impossible. Our son has assured us he bought the house. You're lying. I raised an eyebrow. Is that so? Well, why don't you confirm with Tyler? I'm certain he'll clarify everything. We will, Macy, Janice replied, then turned to her son with indignation. Tyler, tell your wife she's spreading falsehoods. Confirm that you're the owner of the house, just as you've claimed before. Seeing my husband's hesitation, my father-in-law added, Speak up, Tyler. Tell her she can't evict us. My husband remained silent, avoiding eye contact and keeping his gaze on the floor. Gradually, it dawned on his parents that there might be truth in what I was saying. Although they couldn't fully believe it, all this time they had perceived me as a gold digger with a mediocre job, contrasting their son as a hard-working and successful man. Why aren't you saying anything? You told us this house belongs to you. Speak up, Tyler. Tell her she can't evict us, Janice urged, echoing her husband's words. My patience had worn thin, and I decided to step in. What will he say, guys? He's been deceiving you all this time. I can even provide the property papers proving I am the sole owner of this house, I concluded. That can't be true. You have a simple job and limited finances. Our son has a substantial income. There's no way this house is yours. My mother-in-law scoffed. I turned to her, my voice sharp. A significant income, you say? Funny how he forgot to mention that he lost his job 2 years ago. Since then, he's been living off my earnings. And for the record, I have an excellent job. Just because I don't brag about it doesn't mean I'm financially weak, I shot back. The shock on my in-laws' faces was palpable when I unveiled the truth. Tyler, as usual, avoided eye contact, refusing to meet his parents' gaze. They persistently asked him to confirm my statement. He remained silent until I said, Enough drama for 2 days. David and Janice, I've hosted you in my house long enough. It's time for you both to gather your belongings and leave. Missy, you can't just evict my parents like that. They terminated their lease to be with us, and they have nowhere else to go. You can't put them on the streets, my husband protested. Tyler, I said firmly, I can and will proceed with these decisions. No consultation occurred before these choices were made, and your consideration was absent when ensuring them a place in my house. My husband wasn't going to back down. While this may be your residence, I am also your husband. If I decide that my parents will stay here, they will stay. You cannot evict them, he continued. My in-laws also tried to object. This house belongs to our son as well, and anything that is yours is also his. You cannot force us out. Janice, I said, my tone icy, I can indeed remove you, and your son will be no exception. Since you're still legally married to me, Tyler, I will draft an eviction notice for you. Don't worry, you won't remain married for long. Tyler's face turned pale. What do you mean, Macy? Are you planning to divorce me? Yes, my dear husband, I am, I responded with finality. I'll contact my lawyer tomorrow to schedule an appointment. We should be able to serve you with the divorce papers after 10 days. Tyler panicked at the mention of divorce, displaying anger. He threatened to take half the house and claim alimony. However, I reminded him of the prenuptial agreement he and his parents had made me sign, stating that under no circumstances could we claim alimony from each other. Our private assets would remain ours and not be divided in case of divorce. Tyler, upon recalling the prenup, was taken aback. In that moment, he and his parents fully grasped its implications. They suggested we refrain from an immediate divorce and instead have an adult conversation to discuss the situation. Macy, let's take a moment to calm down and talk this through. I'm sure we can find a solution that works for everyone, my husband suggested. I don't care about your benefits, Tyler, I replied firmly. I won't be a cash cow for you, and I won't let your parents take advantage of me after how badly they treated me. That was in the past, Macy. Many years have passed. I'm sure you can look past it. It was a minor issue, my father-in-law tried to justify himself. You and your wife, I snapped, were threatened to have me kicked out just a few minutes ago because I refused to house you. No use making excuses now. You and Janice need to leave before I call the cops. I'd prefer if Tyler leaves too, but he'll get an eviction notice if needed, I concluded. Tyler, David, and Janice begged me to change my mind. They had ended their lease, assuming they could move in with us. My husband thought he could convince me to play along as I did in the past. Little did he know I would stand up against him and stop being a pushover. I was done being the family doormat. They could go to hell for all I cared. When my in-laws didn't leave, even after an hour, I called the cops. They escorted them out and Tyler screamed at me for humiliating his parents. How could you humiliate my parents like that? You humiliated yourself, I retorted. And don't forget, you have a month to vacate my house. That made him switch to being apologetic and remorseful. From that night, I didn't allow Tyler into my room. He stayed in the guest room until he had to leave, served with an eviction notice. Meanwhile, his parents, after spending a significant portion of their savings on a hotel, had to find a new place to rent. Surprisingly, they didn't allow Tyler into their new place, leaving him scrambling for a place, just like his parents. It seemed they wanted Tyler to pay for lying to them. Since then, their relationship has become strained, blaming each other for their present condition. His parents refused to support Tyler anymore. He was only valuable when he had money. Tyler had to couch surf at his friends until he got a job. I filed for divorce. There was no way I was staying with him. He disrespected me and revealed himself as a vain and selfish man, not the person I fell in love with. Tyler tried to change my mind, but I was firm. I refused to be taken advantage of. Since we didn't have kids, we got divorced after 3 months of separation. In those 3 months, I rebuilt myself and started dating again. Tyler still hopes we can get back together, but that will only happen in his dreams.